The Mandalorian Chapter 2 released today, and I have to say, if this show is going to continue to get better and better with each episode, as episode 2 has with episode 1, then this is geared up to potentially be one of, if not my favorite piece of Star Wars in this new generation. I can't claim this to be that until I look at the entire season 1, until I look at the entire package. But if this trend is going to remain, that's where I see The Mandalorian landing on my list of Star Wars stuff. Anyway, I actually like this episode more than the first episode. The first episode did a great job setting things up, don't get me wrong. This episode took things in a different and fun direction. The episode is called The Child. And compared to the first episode, there's very little dialogue, unless you count Jawa dialogue. But in fact, the first 10 minutes of this episode is virtually silent with any lines of dialogue from the Mandalorian, any character for that matter. We spend the first 10 minutes slowly and methodically walking with the Mandalorian as he's attacked by bounty hunters, as he's walking through a little tunnel formation in the rocks. Some other bounty hunters drop down and start attacking him and the kid. And I think it dawns on the Mandalorian that, he's going to have to keep his guard up now. Everybody knows the location of this kid. Bounty hunters are going to be coming after him and the child. I absolutely loved the direction in this episode. It blew me away. The shots, the way the scenes breathe. The episode is funny, too. It's really funny. The Mandalorian is walking back to his ship. He has the kid. He's ready to, jump planet, head back, turn in his bounty. But when he goes over a dune, he sees a ton of Jawas picking apart his ship. He begins laying down some sniper fire, disintegrating a few of them. They all retreat back into the sand crawler, and the Mandalorian gives chase. And the scene has this cadence, this drum beat, this cadence of chase, and as the Mandalorian runs after the sandcrawler and tries to scale its walls, it was like a train robbery. It felt like a train robbery. Cowboys on horseback, riding up to a train, trying to leap on its sides and crawling through the windows or get in somehow. Obviously, the scenario's a lot different here, but that's the vibe it gave. That's the visuals that it gave. And all the while, whenever the camera cuts to the kid, it almost looks like the kid wants to say something, wants to reveal something. The kid keeps getting out of the crib, I guess you would call it, that it's in, walking up to the Mandalorian earlier in the episode, and Mandalorian keeps putting him back in his crib over and over again. I keep saying him, I don't know if it's a him or a her. We'll call it an it. But yeah, the entire sequence of the Mandalorian scaling the sandcrawler, pulling Jawas off, throwing them down, getting pelted by parts, and eventually when the Mandalorian gets up to the top, he pops up in a moment of, I made it, I'm taking over the ship. And then the camera cuts to a bunch of Jawas all holding their own blasters, and the Mandalorian gets shot like 15 times. It's a really fun way to end this drumbeat chase. I legitimately let out a little giggle. Nick Nolte, when he's on screen, man, he really steals the show. You just believe his character so much. You trust his character. In universe, he's thankful, he's helpful. I just love Nick Nolte in this role, and the fact that he finally got in a Star Wars movie, because he was originally looked at to be Han Solo. And now he's in a Star Wars project, and it's pretty great. The way Baby Yoda is done is subtle, and it's cute. Maybe I got more of a soft spot now being a dad, but Baby Yoda is cute. And he's not overdone, he's just kind of sitting there quietly, observing the world like a baby does. Anyway, long story short, Nick Nolte's character, is it Quill? I don't think I've ever heard that name pronounced. But the two of them go and try to trade with the Jawas. The Jawas tell the Mandalorian that they want the egg. They start chanting the egg. It's such a funny scene. It reminds me of the alien toys in Toy Story that are in the claw machine. That's what it reminds me of. They start chanting egg, the egg in their native Jawa language. It's just a funny scene, and then we see the Mandalorian kind of hunched down in the helm of the sandcrawler, at the cockpit of the sandcrawler. Another funny scene. There's a lot of these moments that are chuckle-inducing in this episode, lighthearted. Nice juxtaposition of, like, Baby Yoda cute, Mandalorian gruff. It's a nice juxtaposition, then there's subtle comic relief. It's just the perfect blend of these two dynamics. In the end, there's a pretty tense confrontation between this creature in a cave that the Jawas want the egg from. The Mandalorian goes in there, battles it, and right before the Mandalorian he's holding a knife in his hand. It's like, just come at me, this is my final stand. Right before that happens, this creature starts to charge the Mandalorian, and right at the last second, Yoda baby stretches out its hand, and the creature begins to slightly levitate. Can't get traction, his feet aren't on the ground. This moment's actually pretty subtle. I like how it's not too crazy. It's just a slight levitation with a whole lot of mystery. What's really fun about this scene is that as soon as the levitation is over, Baby Yoda falls asleep like a kid who ran around the park for hours, wearing himself out, and comes home and crashes for a 3-hour nap. Baby Yoda has exerted itself so much, it's gonna sleep for days, and that's what it does. But I really like this scene, so it kind of enforces the idea that Yoda's species, whatever it is innately Force sensitive, is innately gifted in the Force. And there's no question in my mind that this is the reason that the Empire wants to get its hands on the baby. But I really like this moment. Another hilarious moment to me was when, we get the egg. The Mandalorian gets the egg. He's bringing it to the Jawas. And, in my mind, I'm thinking they're going to want to, keep this egg, hatch it for themselves, raise it, this creature, to be a pet and maybe help them on their journey and their scavenging journey or whatever. That's where my brain went, right? Practical, logical thinking. No, they just wanted a tasty treat. When the Mandalorian brings them the egg, they break it open and they all just start putting their hands in the egg and eating it like pudding. It was a really funny moment, all this tension, all this effort, the baby almost getting trampled, the Mandalorian almost getting gored. Also, the Jawas could dunk their hands in some ooey gooey egg and get a tasty treat. It was great. So in the end, the Mandalorian gets the parts that he needs to repair his ship. Kyle, however you say his name, and the Mandalorian put the Mandalorian ship back together in montage fashion, all while Baby Yoda sleeps. In the end, Mandalorian leaves the planet. He's thanked for bringing peace to the valley by Nick Nolte's character. And Nick Nolte's character says, "May it survive," referring to the baby, "and bring you a handsome reward." So there's really no compassion from his character. It's kind of interesting. Everybody's in this bounty mentality, this reward mentality. It's kind of interesting, and I don't know if the Mandalorian is in that mentality still, or if he's developing a soft spot for the baby. If I had to guess, that he is obviously going to develop a soft spot. I'd be very surprised if the show went down the road where he turns in Baby Yoda to the Empire and then bye-bye. I mean, maybe that would be a really, really interesting twist and something very, very different, but I'm sure that's where it's going. This episode was so well directed. It was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, whose work I don't believe I've ever seen before. And he's chosen things that he's written and made the things that he's wanted to make. Looking at his IMDb, that's what it appears to me. Very selective with the projects that he makes. And if episode 2 of The Mandalorian is any indication of his directorial and his overall style when it comes to filmmaking and shooting for television, I'm definitely going to have to check out the rest of his work. Because man, it is awesome. Chapter 2 of The Mandalorian is awesome. Oh, and one of my favorite moments in the entire episode was when the Mandalorian and Nick Nolte's character are so confused. The Mandalorian doesn't know how to process what he saw Baby Yoda do, and he tries to explain it to Nick Nolte's character. Nick Nolte doesn't understand it. They've never seen anything like that before. They've never, it appears, heard anything like that before happening. And I've always liked that in the Star Wars universe. Word doesn't travel around to certain places, certain planets. Not everybody knows everything about the history of everything. You know what I mean? Think about our own world. We're not familiar with a lot of stuff on the other side of the planet. Do you think certain people in a galaxy made up of hundreds of billions of stars would know every single detail about every single Jedi Knight, Force power, Clone Wars, Republic, yada yada yada, all that stuff if they're living out in the boonies in the Outer Rim? No. And it makes it fun. So where do we go from here? My pure speculation is that the Mandalorian takes the baby to kind of the Mandalorian tribe. That's my guess. Try to hide it out, but who knows? The show does a really good job with some twists and turns. The Yoda baby levitation thing, We could have guessed something like that was going to happen, right? It's the moment in Superman Returns where the kid realizes he has superpowers. We all kind of expected it, right? Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comment section below. HelloGreedo, out.